For years, George Tyrus Murdoch lived as a man defined by noise. The roar of crowds, the thud of bodies in a wrestling ring, the constant demand to be larger than life shaped who the world thought he was. He was powerful, intimidating, and unbreakable on the surface. But away from the lights, there was a quieter truth. Beneath the strength and bravado lived a man who carried deep loneliness, shaped by rejection and loss long before fame ever found him. Tyrus rarely spoke about that emptiness, choosing instead to perform strength until it became second nature. Yet what he wanted was never applause or dominance. He was searching for peace, for family, for a place where he didn't have to prove himself. That search would take decades and many reinventions. When he finally found what he was missing, it wasn't in a championship belt or a television studio. It was in a shared life, built slowly and imperfectly, with someone who understood pain just as deeply and healing just as intentionally. Growing up between worlds. Born on February 21st, 1973 in Boston, Massachusetts, George Timothy Murdoch entered a world that never quite told him where he belonged. As a biracial child, he grew up navigating two identities while feeling fully accepted by neither. He often spoke about the isolation of those early years, about being rejected in spaces that were supposed to feel like home. That confusion planted something lasting inside him, a quiet ache that would later fuel both his drive and his anger. He learned early that the world was not gentle, and if he wanted protection, he would have to build it himself. His body became his shield, strength his language. Sports offered structure and purpose, eventually leading him to play college football at the University of Nebraska at Kearney. For a time, he believed he had found his future. He dreamed of teaching, of stability, of belonging. But life interrupted that dream abruptly, forcing him onto a far more uncertain path. When the body betrays the dream. Everything changed when a medical emergency shattered the only identity Tyrus had ever trusted. A ruptured appendix led to complications that damaged nerves in his leg, leaving him with a permanent limp. The injury ended his football career and closed the door on the future he had carefully imagined. Suddenly, the young man who relied on physical strength felt fragile and lost. Without sports, without a plan, he faced something far more terrifying than pain: uncertainty. Wrestling entered his life not as a dream, but as survival. In the early 2000s, he stepped into a brutal industry where pain was currency and reinvention was mandatory. Signing with WWE in 2006, he learned quickly how to perform through discomfort, how to smile while hurting, and how to transform struggle into spectacle. Every character he played became another layer of armor. Wrestling didn't heal him, but it gave him somewhere to stand when everything else had been taken away. The mask of performance. By 2010, Tyrus re-emerged in WWE under a new name and a new persona, one that eventually evolved into the colorful dancing Funkasaurus. Fans saw entertainment and humor, but behind the scenes, the performance was exhausting. He had mastered the art of distraction, hiding pain behind exaggerated confidence. Each character helped him survive, but none truly reflected who he was. When WWE released him in 2014, he once again faced silence, older, injured, and uncertain of what came next. He refused to stop moving. Transitioning to total non-stop action wrestling and later the National Wrestling Alliance, he reinvented himself again, this time as a more serious, hardened version of himself. Titles followed and success returned, but fulfillment did not. Victory after victory still ended the same way, alone. The crowd left, the noise faded, and he was left with the same question he'd carried for years. What was all this strength really for? Ingrid's story of survival. Long before she ever met Tyrus, Ingrid Rink had already lived a life shaped by resilience. Born on April 24, 1981, she found her sense of control early through fitness. At just 15, she walked into her first class and discovered not vanity, but discipline and self-respect. Teaching fitness by 16, she learned how structure could steady a chaotic world. Her adulthood came with its own hardships, financial stress, emotional strain, and the responsibility of raising children largely on her own. Everything intensified when her son Rock was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Fear could have consumed her, but instead she responded with action. Out of necessity, she created sensible meals, a business rooted in care, not ambition. In the process, she transformed her own health, losing over 150 pounds and reclaiming herself. Yet even with success, she was still searching for something deeper, peace beyond survival. Two survivors find each other. When Tyrus and Ingrid met around 2014, there were no grand gestures or instant promises. Their connection grew quietly, built on mutual understanding rather than fantasy. He was guarded, carrying emotional scars and physical pain. She was strong but tired, having spent years being everything for everyone else. Together, they found balance. He learned how to slow down. She learned how to lean on someone else. The birth of their daughter, Georgie Rose, changed everything. Fatherhood softened Tyrus in ways nothing else ever had. For the first time, he wasn't fighting to be seen. He was simply present. Their blended family grew into something real and imperfect, filled with routines, disagreements, and deep loyalty. Fame still existed at the edges of their lives, but it no longer defined the center. What mattered most was the quiet work of showing up for each other, day after day, without performance, weathering the storm. Together, public life eventually brought challenges that tested their foundation. During a difficult period marked by public scrutiny and legal noise, their family faced intense stress and uncertainty. Rather than fueling speculation or conflict, they chose privacy and focus. For Ingrid, the priority was protecting her children and preserving stability. For Tyrus, it was a lesson in humility and patience. The experience forced them inward, away from opinion and toward healing. Therapy, honest conversations, and intentional boundaries became essential. It wasn't about proving anything to the world, it was about staying whole together. When the noise finally faded, what remained was a stronger bond. They had learned that love isn't proven during easy seasons. It's built in the moments when staying would be harder than leaving. Together, they emerged more grounded, more deliberate, and more certain of what truly mattered. Choosing peace over applause. By 2023, Tyrus made a decision few in his industry ever do. He walked away on his own terms. After one final match, he chose family over legacy, presence over performance. Retirement didn't mean disappearance. He continued writing, speaking, and working in media, but with a new sense of control. Life slowed. Mornings became quieter. Weekends meant school events instead of arenas. In January 2024, he and Ingrid officially married, not with spectacle, but with intention. Soon after, they moved to a farm in New Jersey, trading chaos for space. The land became a sanctuary filled with animals, routine, and responsibility. Ingrid embraced reinvention again, stepping away from old labels and choosing growth. Their daughter found joy in horseback riding. Tyrus found pride in the sidelines. Strength, he realized, wasn't dominance. It was consistency, forgiveness, and choosing love every single day. Where the story really ends. The story of Tyrus and Ingrid Murdoch isn't about fame, redemption arcs, or headlines. It's about two people who carried different kinds of wounds and chose to heal together. He came from a world that demanded toughness. She came from one that demanded endurance. Somewhere between those realities, they built a life rooted in honesty and peace. Their farm isn't a retreat from the world, it's a victory over it. It's proof that healing doesn't need an audience and strength doesn't need applause. For Tyrus, the man who once fought to be seen finally learned how to be still. For Ingrid, every storm she survived led her exactly where she needed to be. Some stories don't end with cheering crowds or final bows. They end with quiet mornings, shared work, and a home that feels safe. Sometimes that silence is the greatest triumph of all.